Yes, please. Awesome. Okay, well, hello everyone, and welcome to our March 2021 Jupyter Community Call. I'm Isabella. I am going to be your host today. I am a designer who likes to hang out in the Jupyter community and wants to make sure we all get to connect with each other better. So great to have you here. Thank you for taking the time. To summarize really quickly what the purpose is here, Jupyter Community Calls are a place to just celebrate what people are doing in the ecosystem, make connections across communities and projects so that we can all continue to work better together and remember, why we do all this work for all these cool things and people getting excited and doing amazing stuff with all these tools and standards. The first thing I do want to remind, I know you heard it, Jupyter Community Calls are recorded, whatever that means for you, just keep that in mind. I'd also like to remind people, this is a Jupyter event. Like all Jupyter interactions, you are held to the code of conduct. That includes me, by the way. You can always find that at jupyter.org/conduct. And yeah, if you haven't been here before, what we normally do is we have an agenda, which I have linked in the chat. Hopefully you are signing in. And we go down what people have posted before, like, hey, I want to demo this or share this. Today, though, we actually have an empty agenda. So after I get through my also short list of celebrations and quick reports, it's open. If you want to present something, just let me know and we can do a quick demo. It's a totally open time for you. If not, I do have some discussion items that we can do since we have especially a nice kind of smaller group today. Some fun community stuff we can talk about that maybe isn't as emphasized all the time. So I'd find that exciting too, but yeah. Does that sound good to everyone? Seeing at least one nod.
Sounds good.
Oh, I'm recording with, here, I can go to speaker queue. I always forget to switch that. Thank you. I'm seeing some thumbs up, nods. Thank you, Carol. Okay, awesome. So first things first on that, looking at the short report, celebrations and shout outs. The first one is me. It's just me saying, I know that Cycle 4, CZI, open source, essential open source grant work has been happening, and there's been several people in the community that have been talking about grants that they're starting the application process for, and I just want to say congrats to them. That's a lot of work, and we appreciate everyone's efforts of, trying to work hard to improve this ecosystem. So thanks there. Oh, and we have a newcomer, yay, to the short announcement section. So I know you're still typing, Nick, but go ahead whenever you're ready.
Unmute, there we go, that's me. Hi y'all. So, look, I'm on the camera. I didn't even know that. I've been doing Jupyter starters for a couple years now, and we've shipped in a bunch of products and just hadn't done a real release in a long time. So got that out this morning. It's up on Forge and a tick. It's basically a technique for adding files to your Jupyter client. So you would make a collection of files like I want a to-do list, or I want I don't know, whatever, something. You press the button, you get the file, right? Or you get the files, or you get a workflow that goes around in a circle where it's like, well, do you want more files? Okay, you have more files. And so we've used it for a bunch of things. I'm going to be using it for shipping some course material. So you put your content inside of a package where it belongs, and then you get a button, and that gives you a local copy of it. So you're not, you don't have to learn how to use Git to get your content for the first time or something like that. But then you have it. It's not on someone else's server. So the one of the things under the hood there is React JSON schema form, which is a cool piece of tech, and we'd love to get that into the settings editor on lab, but just finding the time. But that is a reusable component, and we use that on WXYZ and some other places. So if you ever are like, man, it sure is annoying to actually write forms and pick a React library, just ignore that, write a JSON schema and be happy. And then you get all that stuff for free. So that's all. Yep.
Thank you. That sounds wonderful. I hope it goes well getting it out to students soon. We also have Carol on the short reports. Take it away.
Yeah, I just wanted to give a shout out to Darian, who's been doing lots of work behind the scenes to get the Jupyter Distinguished Contributors group moving and working on the next cohort, and as well as all the work he's done with governance and Steve and others on that. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much from me as well. That's a great thing to call out. Thank you. Okay. Anyone else on short reports? I will be quiet for about 15 seconds to give you a chance to think about that. Okay, that was about 15 seconds in my arbitrary counting. Great. Well, thank you everyone who took the time to share that. Is there anyone who does have a spontaneous share they want to give? This could be a demo, but it doesn't have to be. I remember a couple of community calls ago, we had someone ask, hey, like, what is a Jovian? I keep hearing this term, right? So this is open for questions, any kind of discussion if someone wants to lead that or has something they want to say.
If nobody suggests something in 30 seconds, I can try and do a demo. It might be a demolition, but we'll see.
We say demo so that we can include all demo ending forms. But yes, that's a great plan. Great.
I guess just a quick question. People are probably familiar with if this, then that, the IFTTT. Has anyone ever stood up something like that, like Hugin on a Jupyter Hub that can, you know, if I get an email, then make a ticket, then.
You muted yourself in the middle of that, I think.
Oh, sad. I do that, the terrible keypad. If this, then that on Jupyter Hub. Has anybody ever done that?
Within a notebook?
Within a hub. So having the persistent if this, then that service be in the hub and not be the big if this, then that, like an on-prem.
I don't know. I mean, somebody may have done it using GitHub Actions or something, but I haven't heard of anything in specific. I don't know if Simon has, but.
I haven't. It sounds like
It'd
quite
be
a cool
cool
thing to do, though.
Yeah, so the open source one that I saw is Ruby based. It's called Hugin, and might be a really cool thing to give to people. You know, like I'm gonna email myself a notebook and then I get a binder back or something like that, right?
How do you spell the Ruby one? Do you know?
Actually, can I just paste a link into either Zoom or maybe the notes?
Oh, that would be even better. Still, cool.
And then everyone else can play with it.
Sorry,
well.
I was talking, but I was muted. Yeah, so Hugin's is some raven from Norse mythology or something.
Okay, I think I see what you mean. I'm basically running Hugin as a Jupyter Hub service and then do everything.
Yeah, I mean, it seems reasonable as long as you get the permissions and the security right.
Yeah, and being in Ruby shouldn't be a problem anyway, because as a service, it's incorporated directly into Jupyter Hub.
Yeah.
Yeah. They have it's a very opinionated deploy. I don't know.
Hey, could you guys tell us what if this then that is for folks who might not know?
Sure. So if this then that is one of the low code approaches to doing complex things that span a number of services. So let me find the link to if this then that. So, you know, basically you put all your keys up in their big key box so that they can pretend to be you on everything. And then you create these workflows where, you know, the workflow would be triggered by a release happens. And so, okay, the release happens. Now I want to post to Twitter, and I want to post to Facebook, and I want to post to my blog, and I want to, you know, trigger a security scan or something like that. Yep. Yeah, Zapier. Yeah, it's just meant to be more, you know, you give people easy to use workflows that once the integration is written, then it just kind of works. There's a lot of workflow engines. It's just, that's a one that people like to, it has many integrations, so people like it.
Would you want to talk about the use cases you're looking into this for? No pressure, by the way, you already.
Yeah, well, so if you're supporting a team of scientists that are, you know, kind of all over the spectrum of computer savviness, and you want the interactive computing to be the focus of what you're getting done, you know, so you want stuff to, you know, end up deployed as a Voila dashboard or something like that. If you have easy to use entry points into it, like email, and like your chat machines, like your Slacks and your HipChats and your Zulip and stuff like that, if you can trigger interesting things happening, like I'm going to email, I just got this new data set from my offline sensor, I'm just going to email it to myself and to a bot. When I get back to my lab, I've already got a binder built that has that run with some analysis run next to it, and I can share that link to my team without having to replumb every, you know, like, I don't want to write an email kernel, right? Yeah, and there's not a ton of Jupyter integration stuff on there, but I think once an organization is large and diverse enough, more tools like that they start to look pretty attractive.
Yeah, no, that sounds great. Thank you. Anyone else have questions or thoughts on that? I'll take that as a no. Thank you all. Tony, did you have a possible demolition you wanted to share or no? Move on.
I can do it. We can go for it. If people can ignore the banging in the background that's going on because of housework, hopefully that won't be too big of a problem.
I don't hear it right now if you're worried.
Well, it's not going on right now, but it'll happen.
Okay.
Okay, let's party. So this is like intermediate work. I still have some tests I need to fix, and I gotta thank Nick a whole bunch for all the code I'm going to use of his, but also the test that he wrote, testing infrastructure he wrote for this. So what I want to talk to you all about is a library called Schemata. It's not import Schemata. And Schemata is a vision of a future traits library that complies more with JSON standards than, say, Traitlets does. And, you know, this is inspired by tools like Pydantic, which allow you to write JSON schema, but all of them do it as objects. And I wanted these things these sort of types that can describe themselves, because when types can describe themselves, like saying that a string is markdown, I can go and print it in a rich terminal format with a tool like Rich, or if I just tell it that it's a plain string, it shows up a certain way. But the nice thing is that all of these objects, all of these things are actually types. So this is only for IPython people. This is not generic, but I believe the specification can be used a little bit further. So everything is instance type. So all of the things in this library are actually types, like even this thing here. So let's go ahead and take a look at this crazy little situation. So what this actually gives us is some symbolic stuff on top of a symbolic type composition, sort of similar to what you get in TypeScript. So what this says is if I have an integer, that has the properties bar, and that must be an integer. Or if I have a dictionary with a property bar, that must be an integer. I can then pass it into a Jinja string. Then I can tell it to render as markdown, and then I can go and print it. So when we run something like this, we get this nice display. But then if we go and look at this here, we get our pigments display. I think I have another yeah, that one's not working yet. Part demolition. But nevertheless, we can keep sort of pulling these things away and eventually get back to the original types. But what's super nice about this is that we also get all of this validation that's going on. So let me go a little bit further down. Let me take this notebook that I'm working in, for example. I'm going to load this thing in as a dictionary. So let me go and do this. And yes, we get a long string. You expect that. But now if we say that it's a content media type of application JSON, we use the IPython rich display system to show us a pretty view. And now I can actually go and even search my, that might be slow. But I can go and search for things now and query my JSON content or my JSON blobs. So if we go and look, if we go to this object here and we just pop schema on here, it tells us what the schema of the thing is. So this is complying with JSON schema. And my hope is to kind of make a system where you can comply with JSON schema, but still use like a native type interface. So let's go and take a look at my dictionary here. And if we look at this schema, what we wind up seeing is that the annotations here become our properties in the schema. For those that are familiar, this is going to check whether these types are correct. And since this should not be required, so I got a little bug in here, but it'll go and figure it out what the required features are too. So if I have my dict, and then I go and show it to you all, nothing fancy, we just get dictionary. But then since I'm carrying along the schema with this thing, I can take React.json schema form, which Nick talked about earlier, and get a widget right out of it, which is super duper pretty. And I'm still working on that. But then, I can take the same type and append a rich display to it. And now I have a nice view for my terminal. So one of the features of traitlets that's nice is the observable pattern. So if we take something like T and I give it A and B, it goes and computes C. And the reason that it does that is because in the self-definition of the class, we've defined the things that T depends on. And now if we go and look at schema, it's actually adding the dependencies property, which is a part of the schema convention here. So this dependencies property is really nice for observable patterns because it allows you to like a priori figure out what order things need to be executed in. So with something like this, let me go beyond. Let me grab this one here. So here's another example. So this one is saying, let's go and look at the schema and it'll tell us exactly what it says. So it is saying that Z is a string, W is a number, Y is an integer, X is a string, and V is a list. And I have these dependencies here. And again, the dependencies are defined by the annotations on the self object. So Y requires W, and it turns W, which is a float, into an integer. Then it goes and takes Y and turns that to a string, and then it goes and takes X and turns that into X. So now if I go and just give it W, I get back the whole thing. And oops, let's do, that's not what I wanted to do. This is the last thing I'm going to type for you all. All right, there we go. All right, so now I've got T here, and then I can go and say W equals 999. And now we look at T, and it goes and gets updated again. So these dictionaries have observable patterns. And again, since there's this dependency feature, we can go and do some super smart stuff. And then one of the last things that's kind of, actually, no, I'll stop here. Yeah, there's a lot of other things that this can do. It can handle conventional Python types and things along those lines. It can go and make its own applications using Typer. But anything that uses schema, we're using. And even something like this dictionary here has something on it called a strategy, which is a hypothesis testing strategy. And these strategies actually allow these type systems to sort of test themselves. There's a lot of nice properties that fall out when you know a lot about your types. So I'm going to stop there. And yeah, my hope is sort of a more descriptive trait type system that we can use to be a lot more expressive about the applications and things that we build.
That was amazing. Thank you so much, especially for showing that unexpectedly. Can I ask the ignorant question and say, you were talking about this approach applying more with JSON schema. I guess what are the benefits of that, or what is the why? Like, is there a specific reason, or just because following schema is generally good?
Well, so JSON has a bunch of standards organizations, and there are specifications and implementations of a lot of JSON things. And when we're working in notebooks, most of the time we're exchanging JSON-ish objects and JSON-ish structures. So right now, the trait and type systems that we have are either closer to Python or TypeScript. But if they can be closer to JSON, then things on either side of the program can understand it, because we can deal with all of these JSON standards in Python and these JSON standards in JavaScript and Ruby and Go, because there are tools built around all of those specifications. So as a reference implementation, it can be used in most languages.
Yeah, that sounds critical, or very helpful, at least for sharing. Can I also ask one more thing? Does anyone else have thoughts first, actually? This is your seconds of silence to jump in. No. Okay. Oh no, go ahead, Carol.
I was just going to say there was a question in the chat that can you use it with something like Fast API, which is actually a question I was going to ask. So the answer that Nick gave is a very happy answer.
Yeah. So right now I don't have that going yet. So one of the really cool things is, yes, it does work with Fast API. So I can generate pydantic types from this system. It's super duper easy to do that.
That's awesome.
So by being able to write the pydantic types, it becomes really easy to write Fast API. And in fact, Fast API, Fast API uses Python format strings. But the approach we're going to take is to use URI templates instead, because that's, again, another cross-language standard that applies a little bit more generally. So yeah, I think it's going to be pretty easy to get these things consistent. So right now, all of the schemata types convert into typer types, and they convert into pydantic types, which means any of those tools in that ecosystem or space become accessible from schemata. And we can also turn schemata into traitlets. We can turn schemata into params. We can turn schemata into IPy widgets. So yeah, it's really thinking about like being a general Lego sort of interface for types that work with all the different backends.
Yeah, thank you for asking that, Christian, too. That was a great question. So what I was thinking...
Thanks for letting me share.
Yeah, that's the idea. I'm so glad that you did. Thank you for sharing. Do you also have, I know that we talk about accessibility stuff some, are there any implications for that with this? Because you were talking sounded a little bit like labeling to me in some of these cases. Like, are you labeling outputs? Is there any kind of...
Well, so what's nice is that for accessibility, again, there are standards and specifications for them. So what it really would be, so a lot of times, one of the things that has helped me learning about a program's type system really helps you understand the program sometimes. What did you ask me again? Sorry.
I was asking just about accessibility implications in general.
Yes. So one of my favorite things about schema is that if you spend time understanding the program and understanding its type system and writing down its schema, you often understand things. So the exercise for schemata would be to take the ARIA standards and do a little bit of research and convert the ARIA specification into schemata types. And then we could validate and verify those things and basically say, hey, we're not going to let you put an HTML element on the page or an image object on the page if there isn't alt text or if there isn't ARIA. So like, I kind of like the idea, like I've been thinking about this idea of an HTML accessible type system that actually does validation on whether or not it includes certain standards.
Yeah, no, that sounds, oh, go ahead, Nick.
Oh, and the other dimension of that is that there are also standards for internationalization that are encoded as part of a JSON standard. So
oh yeah, this is going to do translation too. It'll do translation closer to JSON rather than like the I-18 or the program language stuff. Sorry to interrupt you. Forgot about that. Thanks, Nick, for reminding me.
no big. So, I mean, it's the only unfortunate thing, and I raised this in the chat, is that the JSON schema itself is not actually a standard. It is a draft. And there is some challenges in the community of the maintainers of those libraries not wanting to support things that different stakeholders have gotten in there. So we can hope for a spec at some point, but it's the best thing we got today, you know?
Yeah, that makes sense. That sounds very exciting, though, as it does. I know I would be excited by things that tell people, hey, this needs to be accessible. That's not okay. So that's amazing. Or internationalizable. Is that the, yeah.
Well, you know, I mean, so it's tough, right? Because like you want to be able to tell somebody also why it's not accessible. Right. So like with this idea of using schema, you can put little pieces in there that say, hey, yeah, when you see this error, it means this kind of thing too, right? Like, I think that one thing that's going to help us do accessibility is like really good error messages to help people along.
Yeah, because these aren't things people tend to be learning. You run into it when you have a problem, and that's kind of it, I find. Yeah, that's awesome. Does anyone else have comments there? Gonna have your moment of silence again to think. Okay. Yeah, thank you once again for that sudden share. That was really great to see, especially work in progress. I know not everyone has enough courage to share that. I know I don't always, so thank you. Does anyone else have sudden inspiration, sudden questions, anything like that? All welcome. This could be, I don't know. I have some discussion topics I can bring up if we're ready for that, but yeah, okay. I'm seeing at least 2 nods, so I will take that for the whole group here. Thank you. So one that might be harder, but I think is a good question since we kind of started it before recording the call anyway. Like, what are favorite notebooks people have had? They could be something you've authored. It could be something that you've seen. I know that's why we were looking for the Notebook Hall of Fame notebook, which is kind of funny. Meta notebook being a favorite notebook. I can also, I know we put the link in the chat, but I can probably screen share that if we want to look at it closer. Do people have other notebooks they remember, something they love that they wrote?
I have a hard time loving myself. Maybe for some people that's uncomfortable to hear.
Yeah.
But
hey, they can be someone else's notebook. You're good.
No, one of the earlier Deathbeds blogs, I realized that this is still one of the least sucky notebooks I've ever written, as far as being useful. I know we talked about it this week too, Isabella, but this notebook talks about, at least in Python land, writing notebooks that are testable or formally testable and stuff like that. So I don't know, for me and for the people that I've shared it with, folks have found it kind of useful in understanding a little bit about how they can understand running tests in the notebook. So yeah, that's one of my favorite personal notebooks.
Can I share a plugin instead of a notebook?
Yeah.
So this one, I
Absolutely.
sort of worked on it ages ago, and then UV Panda from Jupyter joined in. So that basically lets you get a full Linux desktop inside Jupyter on my binder. I don't know, I guess some people have probably seen that before, but I still think it's quite cool.
This is awesome.
Should I screen share these? Does anyone want to see these? Or are you all just clicking and looking on your own?
Well, the joy of my binder is you can always click on it.
Yeah. Nope, that's true.
Maybe we can add favorite binders to this. Like, I want to know, I'm personally curious, is Jeremy still on the call? I'm curious if he has a favorite binder of his, because he's made so many.
I don't know.
Why
Why are these people's favorites? Maybe I should ask that too. Like, we've got a few shared, but what is it? Novelty? Is it something about how they're structured? Like, what's the important part to you?
Well, the reason I kind of like that plugin, initially I'm biased by the works on it, but I think it's just because it's just doing something a bit unusual, showing off something that you'd never think Binder could do.
Yeah, unexpected.
Yeah, I got a silly one here, and it does have a binder, but it's boring binder. Basically, how do you take something that doesn't have a specification and build a specification out of it and the reference implementation? So we hit that in Jupyter a fair amount, where there's, it works in IPython, so that's the spec now. And it's hard actually to get, these schemas and grammars and stuff like that extracted. So this takes the language server protocol markdown source for their specification and the reference implementation in Node.js and builds a JSON schema out of it. It's terribly broken, but it's like, as a thing that you can do in a notebook, you can lay out what would be a very complicated piece of software in a way that incrementally builds it up so that it's possible to follow it.
Great.
Nick, I shared with Pierre, if he's still here. Yeah, Pierre's still here. I shared with Pierre the day I deleted 350 notebooks with RMRF in front of everybody and ruined everyone's spirits.
Was that intentional?
Yeah, I actually told people I was going to do a performance art piece. It was, yeah, it was a little much. It hurt people's feelings.
Yeah.
I think I just shared one of my favorite sets of notebooks. It was taught at SciPy a number of years ago. It's probably 5 years ago at this point. And it uses PyDI, SymPy, and some other scientific Python language packages to simulate the physics of somebody standing up. And it's really well done. It kind of goes from equations, and each notebook kind of builds on the one prior, and there's about 8 or 9 of them.
Does it make these visualizations?
In a crude sort of way, yeah.
Crazy.
I mean, because remember, it was done so long ago, but it would be one that would be worth updating with more modern visualizations, I think. Jason Moore, he's done great work. He also has a textbook where they took, it was like a classical mechanical engineering textbook, and each chapter has an animation built on a notebook that simulates a physics concept, like a cart driving along a road with increased friction.
Very cool. And they gave it like 4 years in a row. I don't know how, I've never stuck to a presentation for that long, but that's super impressive that they got that much life out of this.
So
It was really well done.
yeah, so Jason Moore's been doing SymPy for a really long time, and one of the crazier things that we did was get in the LaTeX parsing into that. So this is a silly one of building up hypotheses that does it work in real LaTeX, and if it works in real LaTeX, can we parse it? And if we can parse it, can we round trip it back through SymPy to get the real math back out? It falls down on like left brackets or something like that. But is another one where it's like you'd never write a program that way, but being able to expose an aspect of testing, as a narrative is very cool. I think I actually presented that the same day that you deleted all your notebooks.
A momentous day for sure.
Oh no, the audience has a rough time when Nick and I are back to back.
I'm sure it's lovely. Thank you all for sharing these notebooks. These are really cool. I don't know. I love seeing these. Do we have more there? I can also.
So another one I'm curious about is if people will pull up old notebooks.
Oh, and see if they. Are we talking like restudy your work, see if they still run, kind of both?
Yeah, kind of thing. No, not they don't. I don't think they still have to run. But yeah, I'm just thinking about when it used to be possible to use %% JavaScript in the notebook. You could just do the craziest things.
Wasn't there? I don't know. Isn't there some kind of? Oh, there it is. The 10-year reproducibility challenge. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I have seen that.
Yeah, somebody was doing research on how reproducible notebooks were over time, but I can't remember who it was.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to keep people if we're good to go. So I can give you your time back and let you go early if you want. But thank you so much for, oh, go on, Carol.
No, I was going to say thank you for organizing and thank you for the time back too.
Yeah, thank you so much all for being here. It was a quieter one today, but I think I have a lot of resources. So I hope you enjoyed it anyway, even with our smaller group. So thank you. What was I going to say? Go on.
I just shared a 4-year-old notebook, which I think is I just feel really uncomfortable doing it, but it goes to show how comfortable I feel in this meeting. But yes, God, there were some gross things that we used to do.
Well, thank you.
This was when I guess Adam was written in. Is this a 7-year-old notebook, Nick?
Looks like it.
Yes. Short JS ID and everything.
Wow.
IPython.html.widgets.
and widget still works basically exactly the same way.
That's good. Or not. I don't know.
This reminds me of that guy who gave the talk in Chicago's Jupyter Day where he was running his laboratory with widgets. Do you recall that, Nick?
Yeah. No, he had, for every piece of equipment, he had a widget, and he ported 10 megabytes of LabVIEW to 20 classes and widgets. Yeah,
it was very cool.
I can only imagine. All these great demos I haven't seen over the years. Good to hear summaries of them. But yeah, the main thing I want to say before people go, just so you know, next community call, hopefully I won't be smothered by deadlines and I won't forget to post about it earlier than I did this time, will be April 27th, same time, same place. And yeah, thank you so much all for your time. I really appreciate it. And I hope you have a lovely day.
But I'm not going anywhere just yet because I know Carol has an old notebook somewhere.
That sounds like a challenge. I don't know.
It is a challenge.
Yeah.
They're all in my repos somewhere.
They're all in the repos somewhere, so just like dig far back in the history.
Yeah, like if you search on Music 21, you might find something quickly.
Okay. All those music ones were so good.
Thank you. They were fun to do. I still use them every once in a while, but I need to update it because Music 21 changed their data structure type stuff. So.
Oh no.
That's not a big deal.
Does that do scoring or just the music? Like just the music? Just the tones?
It's a music theory analysis library. So you can do some of the sheet music rendering and stuff, but it's really for like comparing like how close different pieces of music are in terms of their sheet music, and like comparing all of Bach's concertos or something like that.
Oh man, we had somebody do that at PyData from one of the colleges up the road here in Atlanta, where they had done some insane visualizations of like everything Coltrane ever wrote, all together.
Oh, cool!
Like, what?
That would be cool to see.
Yeah.
There was actually like a throat singer there too, or I forget. It was they studied atonal languages. And yeah, it was really cool. Like there was a band and stuff.
Wow. Neat. Yeah, I think that's one. That's the library for sure. The Music 21.
So since the pandemic's killing me because like I can't figure out what new things you're preaching about, Carol. What are your most recent presentations about?
There's nothing really new and exciting. I've been doing I did a P5JS one for Playfest, which was fun. It was like an intro. It's a conference all about play, which, cool. Yeah, Amory Thomas, who's a professor up in Minnesota, it's her conference, and she's like super out of the box. And so she asked me if I would do something, and I said sure. And then I spent this weekend 2 hours talking with middle schoolers, about 70 of them, about Python and Jupyter and community. So that was pretty fun. Everything I talk about's on Speaker Deck, but nothing really new and exciting. I'm sort of missing the traveling around the world and seeing all the cool things up close and personal.
I just dropped a link. Has anybody seen the Pocket AI thing? So it's a modular 3D printed computer, and I don't know how bespoke. I mean, it's pretty darn bespoke, but their demos are totally nuts. Like, Carol, we've been talking about this for years of a literal Jupyter notebook that's like a trapper keeper that you put all your computational bits and pieces in it, and
that's wicked cool.
Yeah,
I need to do more education stuff and less startup stuff.
Education startups.
Yeah.
I wonder what Nicole's up to these days on GoPyGo.
Yeah, I think she's still doing this same old. She pops up in my feed every once in a while, but.
Yeah, if anybody hadn't seen that before, so this is a robot that runs Jupyter, and you log into it via Wi-Fi and use your robot from the Jupyter running on it. And you can write in ROS, you can write in Python, you can write in Scratch. It's nuts.
Yeah. All right, somebody is pinging me, so I am going to go, but thank you all, lovely folks, and I will see some of you at the next meeting.
Yes,
Bye.
thank you.
Bye.
Bye. I'm going to stop recording.